Imagine realizing that your house is, so heavily infested with venomous insects.
And not just infested, right, but violently, irreversibly on fire.
Exactly. Completely on fire. And your only chance at survival is to pack up your entire family, shrink your house down to a microscopic level, and just go live permanently inside the plumbing.
It sounds completely unhinged.
Right. But today, we are exploring an entire civilization that looked at the state of their galaxy and decided to do exactly that. You are listening to a deep dive into one of the most audacious, desperate survival plans ever conceived in a universe where the baseline reality is, frankly, an unending nightmare.
Yeah, it is a phenomenal scenario to explore because usually when an ancient, hyper-advanced civilization faces total apocalyptic collapse, their responses fall into pretty predictable patterns.
Like fighting to the bitter end.
Exactly. They either wage this bloody, fanatical war of attrition to reclaim their lost glory, or they just retreat into heavily fortified isolationism and slowly wither away.
Just waiting to die, basically.
Right. But what we are looking at today is a third option, a complete radical rejection of the physical universe entirely.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to fully grasp the sheer insanity and brilliance, honestly, of this plan, we need to set the stage. We're talking about craft world Lugganath, which is a surviving splinter of the Eldari.
And the Eldari were the undisputed masters of the galaxy for millions of years.
Millions.
Yeah, they had technology that functioned basically like magic, art that would probably break a human mind with its sheer beauty, and a lifespan that made them virtually immortal.
But they fell. And they fell hard.
Yeah.
And the universe they inhabit now is quite literally trying to eat them.
Yeah, the fall of the Eldari isn't just some historical footnote. Well, I mean, it is a cosmological trauma.
Because of the warp, right?
Exactly, because they were a highly psychic race who experienced emotions at a magnitude hundreds of times more intense than humans. Their collective descent into this ultimate hedonism and excess didn't just ruin their society.
It broke reality.
It generated a massive psychic shockwave in another dimension, the warp. And that buildup of raw, depraved energy eventually achieved sentience. It tore a permanent hole in reality and birthed Slaanesh.
A dark god.
A dark god who immediately consumed trillions of Eldari souls the moment it was born.
And a dark god who is still actively hunting the souls of the survivors to this day. I mean, just to put that into perspective for you listening, imagine knowing that the moment you die, your soul doesn't go to rest.
No, it goes straight to the predator.
Right. It gets violently consumed by a cosmic horror that your own ancestors accidentally created. That is the daily reality for every single Eldari.
Which brings us to the craft world. And it's important to understand that a craft world isn't a spaceship in the traditional sense.
It's not just like a big metal tube with thrusters.
Not at all. It is a continent-sized, sometimes moon-sized artificial ecosystem. And they're constructed entirely from wraithbone, which is this psychically reactive material.
So it's almost alive.
Yes, essentially. When the fall happened, a very small minority of Eldari foresaw the doom, built these massive arcs, and fled into the void. So they are self-sustaining, carrying billions of souls. They have entire mountain ranges on them.
Forests, cities, all floating in the dark.
Precisely.
And among these massive continent-sized arcs, Lugganath really stands out as the ultimate rebel. Even their name tells a story. Lugganath translates from their tongue to light of the fallen suns.
And their primary identifying symbol, their world rune, is the black sun, which is intensely deliberate symbolism.
Oh, so?
Well, the fallen suns refer directly to the ancestral star systems of the ancient Eldari Empire. Those stars, their original homeworlds, were physically swallowed by the Eye of Terror.
That's the massive tear in reality created by Slaanesh, right?
Yes, the birth of the god literally swallowed their suns.
And most of the other Eldari factions are just absolutely paralyzed by that loss. They obsess over it.
They do. They wear mournful colors. They sing laments for worlds they haven't seen in 10,000 years.
It's like they're trapped. They constantly try to scheme their way into getting back a fraction of their old power. They're completely burdened by their own history.
But Lugganath flips that entire psychology on its head. Their philosophy dictates that if you look deeply enough into the void of space, you can still perceive the last, fading light of those dead ancestral stars.
But they don't look at it to be sad.
Right. No, they don't mourn. They use it as a guiding mechanism.
Which makes me think of old maritime navigation. Because of the sheer scale of the cosmos and the speed of light, if you were navigating a ship by a distant star, that star might have gone supernova and died a million years ago.
Right. The light takes that long to reach you.
So, scientifically, you are looking at a ghost, but functionally. That ghost still provides a fixed point, and it can still guide you through the dark.
That is the exact metaphysical mechanism at play for Lugganath. What's fascinating here is how this represents radical acceptance. They have done the psychological work that the rest of their species just completely refuses to do.
They've accepted that it's over.
Yes, they have accepted that the Eldari Empire is dead, and it is never coming back. By fully internalizing the death of their past, they are unburdened. They don't carry that massive baggage of trying to rebuild a lost utopia.
I mean, they took one look at the burning ruins of their empire and basically said, all right, well, that's gone. What's next?
Exact.
And you can see this radical departure in their very aesthetics, too. Traditional craft worlds might wear, bone white or austere, sorrowful blues. But Lugganath, they wear black and a fiery, vibrant orange.
The colors of a forge. Or the colors of a dying star burning its absolute brightest just before the end.
It's aggressive.
It is an incredibly aggressive visual statement. It broadcasts to the rest of the galaxy that they are not quietly fading away. They consider the material realm, the physical galaxy we inhabit, to be completely and utterly irredeemable.
Which sets us up for their master plan, the Grand Secession. Because it is one thing to have a philosophical realization that the physical universe is a lost cause.
Sure.
It is another thing entirely to figure out how to actually leave it.
And this is where we transition from philosophy to sheer mind-bending engineering and metaphysical navigation. If the physical universe is the house on fire, like you said earlier, Lugganath intends to move into the plumbing.
Right. And in this universe, that plumbing is called the webway. Okay, we need to really dig into what the webway is because it defies normal physics. It isn't just like a tunnel network.
Not at all. The webway is a labyrinthine dimension. It exists sandwiched between the physical material realm and the chaotic, hyperdimensional energy of the warp.
So it's sort of a buffer zone.
Yes. It was constructed millions of years ago by an even older, totally extinct species. Think of it as an impossibly complex capillary system or, an interdimensional subway network.
Okay, I like the subway analogy.
It allows a ship to enter a gate in one star system and emerge across the galaxy without ever risking the horrors of deep space or the warp.
But it's old, right? Like it's broken. Because during the fall, when Slaanesh ripped reality open, massive sections of this webway shattered.
Absolutely shattered. So now, this interdimensional subway is full of collapsed tunnels, dead ends, and sections where the walls have just completely rotted away.
Letting unimaginable cosmic horrors leak in.
Exactly. It is a profoundly dangerous place. Most Eldari use it very carefully. They stick only to known, stable arteries for quick travel and military strikes.
Just getting in and getting out.
Right. But Lugganath's plan, the Grand Secession, is to find a webway gate massive enough and stable enough to sail their entire craft world through.
I am struggling to even visualize the scale of that. I mean, you are talking about threading a continent-sized space station through an interdimensional doorway.
The spatial distortion required is staggering.
It would be like trying to drift a modern nuclear aircraft carrier through the alleyways of a medieval European city at top speed.
That is a great way to put it, because a craft world isn't just a ship. It's surrounded by its own gravitational fields, massive defense fleets, and localized reality parameters. To squeeze all of that into a webway artery requires a terrifying mastery of physics.
And the plan doesn't even stop at just getting inside, does it?
No, they don't want to just travel through it. They want to find a hidden, sealed-off spar of this labyrinth-like a dead-end hallway that hasn't been breached by demons and park their world there permanently.
They literally want to live in the walls of the universe.
Permanently. Keep in mind, the webway has no stars, it has no planets. It is an artificial twilight realm of psychically resonant tunnels.
So just endless glowing hallways.
Yes. Choosing to inhabit that space means abandoning the light of physical suns forever. It means relying entirely on their own internal power and hydroponics.
Wow.
It is the ultimate expression of isolationism, and it's driven by an unyielding desire to just survive.
But here's the catch, right? You can't execute a plan that radical if your society is bogged down by bureaucracy and tradition. To pull off the Grand Secession, Lugganath had to fundamentally rewire how their entire civilization functions.
They really did. For context, most Eldari society is rigidly structured around a system called the paths.
Right, because of their intense emotions.
Exactly. Because their emotions are so intense, an uncontrolled Eldari mind is basically a flashing neon beacon for Slaanesh. To protect themselves, they adopt extreme monomaniacal focus.
What does that look like in practice?
Well, a citizen might walk the path of the artisan for centuries, doing absolutely nothing but perfecting the crafting of a single type of vase.
Centuries on one vase.
Yes. And then, once they feel they've mastered it or need to move on, they might switch to the path of the warrior, where they bury their own personality beneath a hyper-lethal combat persona.
It sounds completely exhausting. It's essentially a civilization-wide coping mechanism to avoid being eaten by a god.
That's exactly what it is. It ensures survival, but it totally kills innovation. You cannot navigate an uncharted, crumbling, interdimensional labyrinth using rigid dogma.
Right. You need creative thinkers.
So Lugganath began casting off those restrictive ways. They loosened the grip of the path system, allowing for a much more fluid, adaptable culture.
And in doing so, they became a beacon for every outcast, dreamer, and renegade in the entire Eolari species.
Which is a huge shift from standard craft world culture.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Mm.
When you become the cool, permissive punk rock crafts world, you attract a very specific demographic.
Oh, absolutely.
The alliances they have forged to pull off this webway plan are wild. Let's start with the Harlequins.
The Harlequins are one of the most enigmatic factions in this entire universe. They do not walk the paths. They do not live on craft worlds.
They're essentially wandering theater troops, right?
Wandering troops of warrior acrobats, yes. And they worship Segurak, the laughing god.
Who is one of the only Eldari deities to actually survive the fall.
Because he hid in the webway.
Wait, hold on. Let's just pause on this.
Right.
We are talking about literal murder clowns who worship a trickster god,
Mm.
and the leaders of Lugganath are trusting them with the keys to their civilization's survival.
Well, they don't really have a choice. Because the laughing god resides in the webway, the Harlequins are its undisputed masters.
Oh, so they have the maps.
Exactly. They possess maps of the labyrinth that no one else has. They know the secret arteries, the collapsed veins, the hidden spars where Lugganath wants to hide. The leaders of Lugganath, the Farseers, have had to foster these obsessive, highly secretive ties with these troops.
So you have these solemn, highly psychic seers making backroom deals with terrifying masked acrobats. That alone is a crazy visual.
It is.
But that's not even the most volatile element. Lugganath is also a safe harbor for Eldar corsairs, specifically this massive fleet known as the Sunblitz Brotherhood.
Now, Corsairs are Eldari, who found the rigid discipline of the standard craft world so stifling that they simply left. They reject the safety of the paths to live on the fringes of real space.
As pirates.
As pirates, raiders, and mercenaries, yeah. They are deeply arrogant, intensely lethal, and completely unbound by traditional morality.
Space pirates. They're harboring literal space pirates. And the visual connection here is incredible, too. The Sunblitz Brotherhood paints their ships and armor in the exact same fiery orange and black as Lugganath.
Right, it's a clear ideological alignment. Picture the prominence of this craft world. On one side, you have ancient Wraithbone architecture and meditating psychics.
Very serene, very typical elf stuff.
Exactly. And on the other side, you have Corsair captains swaggering through the markets, flush with plunder, mingling completely openly with the citizenry.
Which must just deeply horrify the other Eldari factions.
Oh, it does. The other craft worlds look at Lugganath and they see a society collapsing into degeneracy. They describe them as savage, uncivilized, cynical, and bloodthirsty.
They view them as a dangerous regression, right? Like,
Right.
to an Orthodox Eldari, allowing Corsairs to dock and mingling with trickster cults looks exactly like the kind of reckless behavior that caused the fall in the first place.
That is precisely their fear.
But is it actually a regression? Because it seems to me like this isn't a lapse in discipline, it's a very calculated strategy.
How do you mean?
Well, Lugganath needs the Harlequins for navigation. And they need the Corsairs because, frankly, if you are going to launch your entire planet into an interdimensional war zone, you want the most ruthless, heavily armed, fringe survivalists covering your flanks.
That is the core dynamic, absolutely. The Farseers of Lugganath are always watching. This isn't anarchy, it is heavily monitored pragmatism.
I know exactly what they're doing.
They do. They have traded the illusion of moral purity for a genuine chance at survival. They are described beautifully in the lore as a riot of color in a galaxy gray with age.
I love that quote. But, you can't just invite space pirates and trickster gods into your home without painting a massive target on your back.
True.
And the galaxy absolutely noticed. When we look at their history, which they call the Crucible of Trials, we see exactly what happens when you play high-stakes games with these kinds of allies.
The historical record of Lugganath is just a testament to the fact that their unorthodox strategy has brought them to the brink of annihilation multiple times. Let's examine the event known as the Shattering.
Which occurred in the 34th millennium, right?
Yes.
This one is brutal. Lugganath is invaded by a massive force of Chaos Space Marines. Specifically, the Emperor's children, led by a warlord called the Radiant King and an apothecary named Fabius Bile.
To really understand the terror of this, we need to understand who the Emperor's children are. They are a legion of transhuman super soldiers who fell entirely to the worship of Slaanesh.
So the exact god the Eldari are running from.
Yes, the worst possible enemy. They utilize sonic weaponry guns that literally fire concentrated chords of psychic dissonance.
And that liquefies internal organs, doesn't it?
It does. It shatters wraith bone and liquefies flesh. And Fabius Bile himself is this master geneticist and flesh sculptor. He views Eldari biology merely as raw material for his grotesque experiments.
So having them board your craft world is essentially the equivalent of the devil kicking down your front door.
Yeah.
Thousands of Eldari were slaughtered in this event. Sections of this beautiful continent-sized ship were defiled beyond repair. But the combat isn't even the most horrifying part of this event. It's how the invaders actually got in.
Right. The invasion was engineered from the inside. And the architect was Salandri Veilwalker.
A Harlequin.
A Harlequin.
One of their greatest allies. The faction they are completely relying on to map the webway intentionally lowered the defenses and invited Slaaneshi super soldiers onto the ship. Why? How does that possibly make any sense?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it reveals the truly terrifying mechanics of foresight in this universe. Veilwalker didn't do it out of malice or spite.
Okay.
The Harlequins and the Farseers operate by reading the skeins of fate, looking down millions of branching timelines. In Veilwalker's cosmic calculus, engineering a localized slaughter on Lugganath would somehow alter the trajectory of the future to prevent greater Eldar deaths millennia down the line.
That is just an alien, completely detached morality. It's basically saying, I have to let these monsters butcher 10,000 of your people today so that 1 billion of our species don't die 1,000 years from now.
Exactly. It forces Lugganath to realize a very harsh truth. While they desperately need the Harlequins, they can never, ever truly trust them.
That's a tough pill to swallow.
To the Harlequins, the citizens of Lugganath are not friends. They are pieces on a metaphysical chessboard. They are entirely expendable.
Which has to breed a deep, localized cynicism within Lugganath. I mean, you survive the invasion, you literally clean the blood off your streets, but then you have to keep working with the clown who opened the door for the murderers.
That takes a massive psychological toll.
And that vulnerability to internal betrayal didn't just end there, did it?
No, it didn't. Millennia later, in the year 421 of the 41st millennium, we see an event called the Slaughter of the Inner Council.
This one feels intensely personal, almost theatrical, really.
Yeah.
The entire leadership structure, the inner council, is butchered by a nameless messenger.
Out of nowhere.
But the detail that really sticks with me is the weapon. They were assassinated using shattered pieces of a statue of Cain.
Right, and Cain is the Eldari god of war, murder, and violence. On every craft world, deep in the core, sits an iron statue of Cain.
But it's not just stone or metal, right?
No, it is actually a dormant, metaphysical avatar of the god himself. It is the most sacred, heavily guarded, and potent artifact they possess.
So this assassin didn't just bring a knife. They somehow managed to break a piece off the most heavily guarded religious artifact on the entire ship, use those sacred shards to butcher the high command, and then simply vanish.
And how did they vanish?
I don't know how.
They fled directly into the webway.
Oh, wow. The ultimate irony.
Precisely. They used the very escape route Lugganath is banking its entire civilization on, and they fled to Camorra.
Camorra.
It's a massive, impossible, dark city hidden deep within the webway. It's populated by the Drukhari, the dark, twisted cousins of the Eldari, who survive by feeding on the pain of others.
It really highlights the fatal flaw in Lugganath's open-door policy. When you loosen your societal restrictions and invite outcasts and fringe elements into your home, you are inevitably going to invite a predator.
It is the cost of doing business on the fringes. But what really defines Lugganath is their response to these traumas.
They don't just give up.
Exactly. They do not collapse into despair. These betrayals harden them. It strips away any lingering naivety, transforming them into a society capable of absolute, unhesitating violence.
Which we see perfectly demonstrated in the assault on the Steelhearts in the year 801 of the 41st millennium.
The Steelhearts were a chapter of Chaos Space Marines, a heavily fortified, deeply entrenched military force.
And Lugganath forces just completely isolated their stronghold. They launched a massive planetary assault, and the record states very clearly that they completely annihilated the renegades.
Total eradication. This isn't a surgical strike or a defensive maneuver. This is total war.
When an Eldari craft world takes off the gloves, it is terrifying. They deploy aspect warriors.
Individuals who have dedicated centuries to a single facet of warfare.
Right. Like striking from the sky like the swooping hawks, or laying down blistering heavy fire like the Dark Reapers. And they deploy these towering, ghost-driven race constructs.
War machines powered entirely by the souls of their dead.
They completely erase the steel hearts from existence.
It proves that they are not just victims waiting to escape. They are clearing the board.
Because if they're going to pull off the Grand Secession, they cannot leave any enemies behind who might track them to the Webway Gate, right?
Exactly. They are tying up loose ends with extreme prejudice.
But despite their military might, and despite surviving Harlequin betrayals and chaos invasions, the lowest point in Lugganath's history, like the absolute nightmare scenario, was entirely self-inflicted.
It was. It was born from a desperate attempt to heal their own people.
The fall of the Seers. This happened in the late 41st millennium, and it is easily the most disturbing piece of lore we have on them.
It begins with a mysterious affliction called the brittle coma. It just began ravaging the craft world's population out of nowhere.
But it wasn't a normal physical virus, was it?
No, it was a profound, spreading lethargy, a metaphysical rotting that left citizens paralyzed and just slowly wasting away.
So the Seer Council, the spiritual and psychic leaders of the craft world, they realize that conventional medicine isn't going to work.
Right.
So they decide to perform this incredibly dangerous psychic ritual. They are going to project their spirits out of their physical bodies, traverse the chaotic currents of the warp, and seek a cure directly from the source of all plagues.
They cast their minds into the Garden of Nurgle. And Nurgle is another of the Chaos Gods, the cosmic embodiment of disease, stagnation, and the cycle of decay.
A horrible place.
His domain within the warp is a metaphysical jungle of rotting flora, disease-choked swamps, and just buzzing swarms of demon flies.
Just the mechanics of that are insane. Astral projecting your soul into the literal domain of a dark god. They had to have known it was a one-way trip for most of them.
They did, but they did it out of an agonizing love for their people. They voluntarily went into hell to find a cure.
And the tragedy's absolute. They found nothing. Instead, they were trapped by the psychic weight of the garden.
Because Nurgle is a god of stagnation, he rarely lets anything leave his realm once it's there.
And the detail that follows is pure, unfiltered body horror. The spirits of these wise, ancient Eldari seers were transformed. They were warped by the garden's energies and turned into wailing trees.
Sentient, screaming timber.
Yes, that constantly bears nurgling fruit, these little giggling demons of decay.
It is the ultimate perversion of the Eldari soul. Think about it. They spend their entire lives terrified of their souls being consumed by Slaanesh, only to endure an eternity of conscious, rotting torment in the domain of Nurgle instead.
It's so bleak. They are a permanent living monument to their own failure.
So what does this all mean? When the wisest among you suffer a fate that is so demonstrably worse than death, simply for trying to help, how does the society not just fracture entirely?
Right. How does a regular citizen of Lugganath wake up the next cycle, look at the empty council chambers, and decide to keep fighting?
That refusal to fracture is the defining characteristic of craft world Lugganath. Most cultures would succumb to the very despair that Nurgle feeds upon. But Lugganath, they channel that horror into an even more fanatical dedication to the Grand Secession.
It just hardens their resolve.
Yes, they look at the wailing trees and conclude that the physical universe and its adjacent metaphysical realms are fundamentally broken beyond repair.
It just accelerates the timeline. They have to leave. Now,
Exactly, and the timeline is currently moving faster than ever. In the modern era of the galaxy, the Great Rift has opened.
this massive, galaxy-spanning tear in reality that bleeds warp energy absolutely everywhere.
And Lugganath is right in the thick of it. They are fighting off fleets of Tyranids, which are these endless biological swarms that just strip entire planets down to bedrock.
They're everywhere.
They are deploying forces to help defend the Black Library, which is a legendary repository of knowledge hidden in the Webway from the sorcerers of the Thousand Suns.
Oh, wow.
And they are even running assassination missions to prevent massive orc warlords from triggering Imperial crusades that might accidentally cross their path.
It's nonstop. They are fighting a multi-front war against apocalyptic threats, coordinating with space pirates and navigating an interdimensional maze, all while their primary leadership has been reduced to a screaming forest in hell.
And yet, they keep moving toward the gate.
It is a breathtaking testament to resilience. They are the ultimate embodiment of refusing to accept a rigged game.
When you lay all these threads out, the philosophical acceptance of a dead past, the alliance with outcasts, the intense militarization following brutal betrayals, and the endurance of unimaginable cosmic horror, a very clear thesis really emerges here.
Looks out.
Craftworld Lugganath is a chilling mirror held up to their universe. It shows that in a dark enough future, even the most noble, ancient, and technologically supreme races are reduced to desperate refugees taking impossible gambles.
But they are refugees with agency. I think that's key. They have looked at the two standard options of survival, dying on your feet in a feudal war or dying on your knees in a bunker, and they rejected both.
They forged a third path.
They chose a completely insane, impossible hope over guaranteed destruction.
They are completely rewriting the parameters of survival. They are attempting to change the board they are playing on entirely.
And I think that's the core takeaway for you, listening right now. Obviously, we aren't dealing with alien locust swarms, interdimensional geometry, or chaos gods in our daily lives.
Thankfully.
Right. But we all exist within systems that can feel fundamentally irredeemably broken, whether it's in our careers, our societal structures, or our personal lives. There are moments where fighting the system feels like a losing battle of attrition.
And surrendering to it feels like a slow death.
Exactly. Lugganath offers a profound lesson in audacity. It requires immense courage to look at a rigged board, refuse to play, and walk away to build something entirely new.
Even if you have to go to the absolute fringes to do it.
It's about having the sheer nerve to be that riot of color in a gray world, to pack up your bags and say, I am not participating in this destruction anymore.
However, there is a haunting ambiguity to their grand design that we really cannot ignore.
There is, and that is the thought I want to leave you with today. Let's just play out the best-case scenario. Against all odds, the Harlequins find the perfect hidden spar.
The Farseers stabilize the gate.
The Corsairs hold off the horrors of the galaxy just long enough, and craftward Lugganath sails their entire continent into the webway. They find their quiet corner, and they seal the door behind them.
They achieve the grand secession. They are safe from Slaanesh, safe from the Tyranids, safe from the Great Rift.
But the webway is an infinitely complex, largely uncharted labyrinth. If they lock the door and sever all ties to the physical universe.
What happens if they get lost in their own sanctuary?
Exactly. With no fixed stars to guide them, and only the artificial twilight of the walls. Wait, I shouldn't say ... With only the twilight of the walls to light their sky.
It's pitch black.
Right. Are they actually saving their civilization, allowing it to grow and thrive in secret? Or, in their desperation to escape a burning house, have they simply sealed themselves inside a beautiful, perfect tomb where the rest of the galaxy will never even know they died?
Can absolute infinite isolation ever truly be considered a victory?
It is the ultimate wager. And only time will tell if the light of the fallen suns was leading them to a new dawn, or into an eternal night. Something to dwell on next time you're trying to find a way out of a no-win scenario. Until next time, keep diving deep.